Hey everyone, Cam White here, and welcome to your 2022 year ahead horoscope for Taurus, Sun, and Rising. There's a lot of things going on this year. I'm really excited to talk about every single thing that's going on in 2022 for you guys. In this video, we're going to be going over every major transit pretty much of each month of the year. We're going to go month by month. Now, this is like a two-part video series. I did another video that I'm going to put a link to in the description, or maybe even right here too. That goes over every transit of 2022. And I really, in that video, I really just talk about the transit, what the transit's going to look like in the mundane world, what it's going to just like kind of symbolize. And I want you to make sure you watch that video so you can understand the transit itself, because in this video, we're going to be going over where in your life this is going to be showing up, how it's specifically going to be affecting you as a Taurus sun or a Taurus rising, because in that video, I didn't go over how it's going to be affecting each zodiac sign. So anyway, make sure you check that out. As well, if you want access to this type of content early and also exclusive content, as well as if you want to know what's going on every single month for you guys in 2022, I do monthly horoscopes over at my Patreon. Consider becoming a patron. Getting access to all that stuff, it also supports my channel as well. If you like this video, make sure to let me know you like it by liking it, commenting, letting me know what month you guys are most excited for coming up this year, and also let me know what month you're not looking forward to this year. Anyway, we have a lot to go over, a lot to say, so let's just jump straight into it. So, starting 2022 off, I'm already exhausted. I gotta say, do this for all 12 signs, so this is a lot of work. Anyway, we're starting 2022 off with a few things. We end 2021 with Jupiter going into Pisces, and I just want to start off with that first. Jupiter actually already kind of went into Pisces for just a minute back in 2021, and I want you to think back of what was going on in May and June of 2021 for you. Jupiter rules expansion. Jupiter rules abundance. Jupiter rules faith. It rules hope. It rules optimism. It rules abundance. Jupiter rules the sign of Pisces, so Jupiter is very comfortable here. Jupiter can do what it wants to here, which is to be optimistic, maybe even to a fault at times. But anyway, Jupiter entered Pisces, and it entered your 11th house of your friends, of your colleagues, of your networks, of your associates, right? And so during May and June, maybe you were expanding this area. Maybe you were hanging out more with friends. Well, anyway, in December of 2021, at the very end on December 30th, going into January of 2022, and for the most part of the beginning of the year, mind you, the beginning of the year, for the most part, Jupiter is going to be in Pisces. You're going to be expanding your friendships, expanding the groups of people that you hang out with, maybe hanging out with more people, having better friends, or at least just seeing your friends more. Keep this in mind, because we're going to come back to this quite a few times throughout this horoscope. But either way, Jupiter is going to be back in Pisces, bringing much more kind of thought, questioning, and like learning when it comes to friends, integrating yourself more with people. Jupiter also rules your 8th house, which rules things like shared resources, other people's money. It's transactional. A lot of the 8th house rules trust too. So I think this is kind of like, not only you hanging out more with your friends, but where do you integrate yourself with your friends? Where are your boundaries with your friends when it comes to what's yours and what's theirs? So that's Jupiter and Pisces. We're going to come back to that as we kind of go out through this. But anyway, the two other big things that we're starting the year off with, Jupiter is going to be in Pisces and Venus is going to be retrograde. Now, I have a video about the Venus retrograde. Make sure you check that out as well. But either way, this, it's Venus retrograding. A value shift is occurring. Venus is your ruling planet. It is your ruling planet. It describes you. Whatever Venus is doing is going to be a pretty good marker or indicator of what you're doing, right? Venus retrogrades usually symbolize a time of value shift, a change of taste. Venus rules your 1st house of yourself, your body, your image. And Venus also rules your 6th house of your work, your day-to-day routines, your habits. Venus is retrograding in your 9th house of your spirituality, your beliefs, your higher education, like things like college, far distance travel. Venus is going to be retrograding on top of Pluto. So there's going to be quite a, for lack of a better term, quite an awakening you're going to be going through in sense of really questioning your beliefs, questioning what what you enjoy, questioning things about yourself. Because Venus is your ruling planet, you can go back to the last time Venus stationed retrograde in Capricorn, and you could probably see a lot of similarities. Venus retrogrades in the same sign every 8 years. And I want you to think what was going on January, February, and March of 2014. That was the last time we had a Venus retrograde in Capricorn, and this would have been a very similar time. Venus retrograding in your ninth house, changing something up, having a value change, a change in the rules with something. So at the ninth house, that could be your college, your education, your spirituality, your beliefs, your church if you're religious. Could also be a change in online structure if you work from home and if you do online type of work. It's a lot of people. But anyway, that will be a big change. We're going to come right back to that. But also, Mercury is going to retrograde in January. So January really starts off as a shit show, which I've talked a lot about in my weekly horoscopes, in my monthly horoscopes on Patreon, and my other videos. I've been talking about January is just going to be a shit month either way. But Mercury is going to station retrograde in your 10th house of your career, exactly squaring Uranus in your first house. So, if you've been itching to like make a drastic change in your life, this might be it. You might kind of say something that destabilizes something about your work might be really unstable. Mercury rules your second house of your money too, and it's retrograde in your 10th, so there might be some type of money issue, payment issue when it comes to work. Mercury retrograding though on top of Saturn squaring Uranus, something that you were expecting to be really sturdy actually really wasn't. And it's going to be pretty shocking. And we pretty much go through that whole month of January with Venus being retrograde and Mercury being retrograde in your 10th. So you're going to be going over things again. You're going to be repeating things. Venus enters shadow in November. So what was going on in November and December for you as far as your spirituality, your beliefs go? Same thing with your health. Maybe you're learning stuff about health stuff. Venus goes retrograde all through January, where you're going to be kind of shifting your value, shifting what you really want to connect to, shifting the rules that you play by through January. And that also coincides with Mercury retrograding, miscommunication, a time delay, if anything, with your work. That takes us to pretty much February. Let's go ahead and jump into February because that's pretty much the big things I want to talk about with January. And we get into February, and we start February off on February 4th with Mercury stations direct, Venus stations direct now. And now at February, there's kind of this rock bottom that we hit, and it gives us a really good bedrock foundation to really start working from, to start moving forward on. Mars is going to be in your ninth house. Mars rules fights and conflicts, and Mars rules engagement and what we're doing, what we're energized to do, right? Like it literally rules energy. Mars is exalted in Capricorn, where we're going to be having better energy. It's like you have more time to do things and can be more efficient at doing things if they're structured the right way. And as Mars goes into Capricorn, we find the structure and we find the way, the rules to the game that work for us. And as Mars and Venus are conjoining each other, they're going to be conjoining each other exactly to the degree pretty much for over a fucking month, which is really, really important. And I want to talk about the fact that Venus is your ruling planet. And Mars rules your seventh house of relationships. So this could involve you in a relationship. This could involve you and a partner. For a lot of people, this is going to be relationship oriented. I don't want to focus too much on that because what I want to focus on is Venus and Mars being together in the ninth house, possibly traveling with a partner. I'm skeptical about that because who knows how traveling is going to really be working in this winter. But Mars and Venus together in your ninth house. This is redoing your like beliefs. This is redoing everything. Mercury stationing direct on top of Pluto. A power change, a relationship to power, in a way that you understand things is really changing. And I really just think February is kind of just like working with that new energy, playing with a new play. It's like it's a transitionary time of adjusting to the new rules. Adjusting is the word I really wanted to look for. Starting something new. And that's pretty much the majority of February. Mercury will go back into Aquarius. Go back into your 10th house. You're doing things more there. Really, all of February is Mars and Venus in Capricorn, playing things by this new rules, or playing by this new set of rules. really energized, doing things in a very spiritual way, really active with your spirituality, with your beliefs, dreaming a lot, traveling a lot possibly, which that really leads us to March. Now, March, we've got a lot going on. So starting March 2nd, March 2nd is a pretty big day. We're going to be having Mars and Venus conjoin Pluto at the same time, which this is a really big power shift. For some people, some people like to play with fire. Some people don't like to play with fire. And that's kind of one of these transits. But here's the thing. On March 2nd, Venus leaves shadow. Venus has entered shadow in November of 2021. Venus was in shadow of December, stationed retrograde in December, was retrograde in December, retrograde all of January, then stationed direct at the end of January, and then started to move forward in February. And at March 2nd, we finally get Venus leaving shadow. So again, Venus is your ruling planet. What was going on January, February, March of 2014? Very similar thing here. Whatever you were changing about your beliefs about yourself. This could even be an identity shift. This could be a change in your work. This could be a change in how you relate to your work, how you work, how you teach if you're a teacher. And things really start to move forward here, but they change in a very dramatic way. They change in a very powerful way. Mercury is also conjoining Saturn, so this is definitely a communication of some sort, a message happening of some sort. And this is a new moon in your 11th. So this is really taking advantage of the new networks, the new friends, the new community that you are in. And that's pretty much how we start March. But as we continue through March, not to mention too, Uranus is in your first house, right? Like, don't expect anything this year and for the next 6 years, or not 6 years. Really, I think we're at like 4 more now, 3 or 4 more years of Uranus and Taurus. Uranus is going through your first house. For a lot of you, you've already had a lot of changes. And for the rest of you, the changes are coming. So just like expect the unexpected, just generally over the next couple years. But anyway, Mars and Venus enter your 10th house. So there had to be this kind of change in your belief system and kind of like the rules that you operate under. And then as Mars and Venus go into your 10th house, this is again translating much more of that like energy of like fun and engagement, but with like career and work stuff. But this is an Aquarius, so this is doing things differently in a way that you're not used to. Maybe, being a little bit more strict than you're used to. March 8th, look, Mercury, Saturn, Mars, Venus. A lot of things going on in your 10th house. A lot of things are very public for you. This is also going to start squaring Uranus. You're going to start changing a lot of things. I think this is when you're going to start seeing, really a change of pace. There had to be a lot of changes going on in that 9th house area first. And this is much more when those changes appear public, when everyone else can kind of see what's going on, if that makes sense. And most of March is just that. I want to also bring your attention to Mercury is now in Pisces. Mercury is going to be conjoining Jupiter here. Maybe be careful of lending things out to people, letting friends borrow things all the time. Something might happen with that. Mars is also going to be squaring Uranus here. Just expect, you doing things differently and not necessarily knowing how to do it. And that's okay. Mercury's going to be conjoining Jupiter. You'll figure it out as things go along, but just expect things to be new, expect things to be different, expect things to be weird going on in March, specifically with how you relate to your career and how the world sees you and how you engage with your friends and your community because of that. As we move forward through March, that's really the majority of what I wanted to get to, which leads us to April. April is really crazy. April, we're going to be having, you're going to have the sun in your 12th house. You're going to be kind of in your head a little bit for the first part of it. But what I want to fast forward to is April 5th, things really change. Number one, I have a video about this that I'm going to post somewhere. The North Node is now in your first house. You are feeling very wanting to know more about yourself, feel comfortable with yourself, get secure with your identity, get secure with your sense of self. There's a lot of this there's a lot of this pumped up energy of you need to figure out who you are. You need to understand yourself. You need to go more towards yourself. Forget other people. The South Node is in your 7th house. You're like, fuck everyone else. I need to worry about me right now, which is really important as we talk about April, because starting in April, Venus enters Pisces. Now, this is important because Jupiter's in Pisces and Jupiter's now on top of Neptune. This is going to be really interesting because I think for a lot of you, especially if you guys have made a lot of friends on the internet, I think a lot of these people will become in real life friends. Jupiter's conjoining Neptune in your 11th house, where there's this distortion and this blending of media and friendship and community and spirituality, and all this weird blending together of your friends is coming together in April. I think you're going to be much more social. I think you're going to be much more active. Venus is going to be in your 11th house as well. You're going to be having a lot of fun with people, in my opinion. I think the sun's going to be in your 12th house for a little bit of it. Mars is also, I meant to also bring up, Mars is also going to be conjoining Saturn. You're going to be like really taking care of business at work. But as Venus goes into Pisces, you're really going to be enjoying your friendships, really enjoying this new network, this new community that you're with, which kind of leads me to more towards the end of April when the sun goes into Taurus and when Taurus season starts. So for some of you, this might be your birthday. For others, the sun's going to go through your first house where you'll just feel more confident and more, egoic than normal, which is, and in my opinion, can sometimes be a good thing. But when we go through April, let's get to it here. This is pretty much the craziest day of 2022. This is the Venus-Jupiter conjunction. Jupiter's conjoining Neptune, right? I want you to think of it this way. And this is actually a good analogy because this is happening in your first house. So this is an eclipse in your first house. Eclipses represent intense changes. Eclipses represent where things were supposed to be illuminated, they get blocked. Like it's a very dramatic exclamation point, right? This is in your first house of your identity, yourself, your body, your image, your worldview. This is a very dramatic change in that, a very dramatic one. This is, you guys know me, I usually try to not emphasize on things. I'm emphasizing this for a reason. This is a big change for you guys with how you see yourself and how you operate. More for the Taurus risings than for the Taurus suns, but the Taurus suns are going to get it too. Now, this is important because Venus, the ruler of Taurus, the ruler of this eclipse, we have to find out where Venus is at because this eclipse is ruled by Venus. Venus is at her exalted degree. Venus's favorite degree to be in is 28 Pisces, on top of Jupiter, also at 28 Pisces, on top of Neptune. This is like when what's-her-face, that one chick in The Great Gatsby that the guy really wants to come to the party, comes to his party and they hook up. That's the Venus-Jupiter in your 11th house. This is expanding your friendships. This is just like really good. I think with your work, your health, your coworkers, yourself, your body, your friends, a lot of good shit going on here. But it's very dramatic. It's all over the place. It's really intense, and some people don't like the intensity. Some people do, but a huge change in your friendships and how your friends see you and how the world sees you at the very end of April, which leads us into May. May is when things change. Let's actually get a little bit deeper into May real quick, and let me talk about the bigger things that are going on. And that is really in the middle of May, Jupiter's going to enter Aries. Here, let me do this. Jupiter's going to enter Aries. Jupiter is now going to enter your 12th house. This is really interesting because this is building upon what April brought you guys with the friendships. Jupiter rules your 11th house of friendships, of community, of friends, right? Jupiter also rules your 8th house of shared resources, other people's money, what other people have, secrets. And Jupiter is now in Aries, where Jupiter, where its job is to create abundance, which is to do things in a big way, is doing it in Mars' sign. It's using Mars as tools. So through engagement, through fighting, through just like pure force and brute, right? So Jupiter is now in your 12th house, though, of isolation, alienation, hidden enemies, the subconscious. Your 11th house ruler, Jupiter, is going into your 12th house. Your 11th house ruler of friends is going into your 12th house of hidden enemies. I think you might be deceived by someone, and I think you might have a potential enemy come up. And I think with Mars too, your 12th ruler on top of Neptune, I think you're going to be very not sure of who to trust and why you're trusting them. And I think as Mars goes into Pisces too, you're going to be kind of like wanting to eliminate yourself from some friendships. Mars also rules your 7th house of open enemies. So again, I think you're going to be kind of much more skeptical about who you're hanging out with at this time for various different reasons. But we go through May, and then we get to this eclipse on May 15th. This is a huge, like, who are you and who are you getting rid of, really, at the end of May. But then Mars conjoins Neptune, and at the very end of May, let me just skip over here. At the very end of May, Mars is going to conjoin Jupiter in your 12th house. And this is huge. Again, Mars rules your 12th house of hidden enemies, and Mars rules your 7th house of open enemies. Jupiter rules your 11th house of friendships. Jupiter rules your 8th house of secrets, and they're conjoining in the 12th house of things that you didn't see. Self-sabotage, which is something very specific. Isolation, alienation, the subconscious. I think you're going to be kind of going within. I think you're going to be isolating yourself a little bit more. Mercury's also going to be retrograding in your 2nd house of money, so you're probably going to have some miscalculation with your money and your finances that could be relating to sharing with friends, but that's a different story. Mars and Jupiter conjoining your 12th house. I think you're going to be doing things much more solo, much more alone. I think maybe you might concentrate your friendships and maybe not be so scattered and just be friends with everyone willy-nilly. Mars and Jupiter in the 12th house, there might be someone going against you and working. I see this all the time. Maybe you have some shitty coworker that doesn't like you and they're actively, trying to sabotage you. That's what this could indicate. This also looks like, though, really going within yourself, going like, hey, what do you believe? I think you're going to be getting kind of angry at this time, things that might upset you that you don't know about. I think you might be really changing your, view on relationships and how you engage with them. And I think you're going to be really trying to dissect them and examine that at the end of May. That brings us into June. Now, June, there's a few things going on in June that I actually really like. For one, Saturn's going to go retrograde in your 10th house. Saturn has, and you can think a lot of what 2021 was like, because this is going to be very similar. Saturn gave you all this new authority and responsibility, and you got this kind of, new authority, this new higher position. As Saturn goes retrograde, it's harder to keep those positions of authority and those positions of power the more that you're up there, right? Like the taller the building, the more support it needs. And Saturn's going to be squaring the nodes. Saturn's going to be squaring Uranus. So this is kind of like, hey, can you roll with the punches? Hey, can you go with the changes of things in areas in your life you're not used to adapting with? It's like, maybe you got promoted to a manager of a company, but then that company got bought out by another company. Now the whole rules are changing. Now you're the manager of a company that, it could be something like that. Expect to deal more with the harsher parts of responsibility and authority. But also in June, what I like about June is Venus is going to be going through your 1st house. Venus will be in Taurus, and Venus is going to conjoin Uranus in the North Node. So there's this increasing like you're going to be looking really good. You're going to be feeling really good. I think you're going to be trying new and inventive things. Some might fail, some will work. But I really think as Venus is just going through your 1st house, I think you're just going to be feeling good, trying to feel as good as you possibly can, especially as Venus conjoins Uranus. I think you're just going to be doing things that you weren't expecting, trying new things, being innovative, possibly changing how you look in a different way too. And that's really the majority of June, is just kind of really dealing with the weight and responsibility stuff. Mars and Jupiter in your 12th house. I think you're going to be, again, going a little solo here, being a little bit more by yourself. I mean, the South Node is going through your 7th house too, so this isn't about relationships. And that's not to say some of you that are in a marriage, some of you might leave your partner. For other people, this might just be less of a focus on your relationship and just more of a focus on you. Not everything is, always bad like that. But that's pretty much June for the most part for you guys. The North Node is also going to be conjoining Uranus. So I think you're just going to have this really big pull and urge to do things different, to be inventive with yourself. And you're going to just be on the precipice of a breakthrough, I think, for the majority of June and really the majority of this year. That brings us to July. Let's get to July here. Big thing of July. When we get to July, Mars enters Taurus. Not depending on who you ask, it could be fun, it could be good, it could be bad. I personally don't think Mars in Taurus is fun because there's going to be a lot of energy that Mars in Aries will give us. I think for you guys, it's going to be much more like mental. But as Mars goes into Taurus, it's going to feel like this like halting of doing things. Mars is going to go into your first house, right? Mars rules fights, Mars rules conflicts, Mars rules energy. Mars is going into detriment. There's going to be low energy. There's going to be this like not wanting to fight, not wanting to do anything, being very stubborn. Mars is going to go into your first house. Think of January of 2021. What was going on January and February of 2021 for you guys? You're going to come like right back to that. You're going to feel maybe sluggish. You're going to feel very stubborn, not wanting to do things. You're going to feel slowing down a lot. As well as we kind of go out throughout the month, Mars is just going to go through Taurus. You're just going to feel sluggish for the most part. And then at the end of July, is it at the very end of July? Yeah, it's at the very end of July. Jupiter stations retrograde, where again, Jupiter rules your 11th house of friendships, and it's been now in your 12th house of things that you didn't see, hidden enemies, the subconscious. And as Jupiter stations retrograde, Jupiter gives presents as it goes forward, right? So like you're going to make a bunch of friends, and then I think you might just go solo, or maybe just spend more time by yourself, or maybe the 12th house also rules self-sabotage. Some of you might sabotage those friendships. But I think as Jupiter goes retrograde, there's going to be this kind of questioning of like, do you have faith? Can you remain faithful? Can you remain forgiving? Can you trust people? As Jupiter retrogrades, you're going to be really asking those type of questions when it comes to your friends, as well as your 8th house, which is your shared resources, investments, other people's money, your partner's money. So there's going to be this sense of maybe like, hey, what's going on here? Can I believe in this? Can I trust this when, the well runs out, right? Mars is going to be in your first house, where you're going to be frustrated the whole month, which really leads us to August. And we get to August 1st. Write this day in your calendar. This is a really big deal. This is a really big day. Mars is going to conjoin the North Node and Uranus in your first house. For a lot of you, this is a huge deal. For a lot of you, this is going to be a breakup. For a lot of you, this is going to be a complete change in what you're doing. For a lot of you, you're going to sabotage yourself because Mars rules your 12th house of self-sabotage, and it's on the North Node on Uranus. You're going to think you're not sabotaging yourself, but you might be doing that anyway. This is going to be a big day in the news. This isn't a fun day, but I would really try to get out of your own way on August 1st. Let things just happen. Let things just happen. It's going to be squaring Saturn too, a couple days into it. Yeah, after that, Mars will square Saturn. So this is really, again, coming to a halt. Mars is in your first house. If you slack off, expect to get your hours cut type shit. And that might make you go, oh shit, I need to get back to work and do my thing. That's kind of like one of this type of energy here. This might not even be your fault, right? I don't want to throw the blame on you because it's not how the world works all the time, even though you should take responsibility for yourself. But Mars is going to be on top of Uranus and the North Node squaring Saturn. There's this kind of like unexpected halt with things, unexpected slowdown, or at least a lot of volatility, a lot of instability and uncertainty with, keeping things consistent. It's not going to be easy to keep things consistent during August. And really, most of August is defined by Mars conjoining Uranus North Node squaring Saturn. These innovative things that you do that really rock the boat might cause more problems than you're used to because you're going to have a lot of good luck with it in the beginning of this year. But I think around this time you might have a little bit more challenges with it. So just be hesitant with things because I think around this time you might kind of shoot yourself in the foot on a lot of things here because really Mars is just going to be grinding through Taurus, squaring Saturn. Jupiter's retrograde, Saturn's retrograde. August is really like murky and slow. And then Mars enters Gemini. That alleviates itself and the focus now becomes on your money, and you might be spending more money, but we're going to get to that as we go to September. That's most of August. Let's actually go to September now. When we get to September, that is when, what's going on in September? Oh yeah, Mars enters shadow. This is actually when Mars enters shadow, like right at the beginning of September. Here's the deal. We're going into another Mars retrograde. Mars enters shadow starting September 2nd, or not really September 2nd, sometime in September. But as Mars enters shadow, it's going to go back over the spot. What is Mars doing here? Mars rules your 7th house of relationships, and it rules your 12th house of hidden enemies. We've covered that. Mars is in the sign of Gemini, where, it fights with its words. Mars is in Gemini is like information. Mars in Gemini is very argumentative. Mars is in your 2nd house, though, of your money, your finances, ownership, possession, assets. And as Mars is in Gemini in your 2nd house, you're going to be having a lot more activity here, whether that's burning through cash, breaking things, could easily be breaking things. Someone could be breaking your stuff because that's 12th house of hidden enemies, 7th house of open enemies, and the South Node's going through there. Maybe you're lending things to people. I would not recommend that, but maybe you are anyway, and you're lending money or possessions. I don't think that's a good idea. And let's talk about, well, we'll get to the next thing at that in October, but Mars enters shadow. So you're going to be dealing with this like utilization of your resources. Where are you spending your money? Where is it going? Why is it going in those places? There's a good side to it because Mars is trining Saturn, so there is constructiveness to it, but there is a lot of confusion. Mercury is going to retrograde opposite Jupiter. So Mercury rules your 2nd house of your money, and it's retrograding in your 6th house of your work, your schedule, your habits. And Mercury is retrograding opposite Jupiter in Aries. Jupiter rules that 8th house of shared resources and investments. I think there's some type of miscalculation you've got going on around September where maybe unexpected expense coincides with a cut in work, coincides with some other problem. I don't know. A lot of trying to just kind of get things figured out around September. But what's going on in September is a lot of context is starting to develop around money because a bunch of things are going to be happening with that around money, around possession, resources. So anyway, as we go through September, we have the Mercury retrograde. Essentially, Mars will be going through your 2nd house. It's going to trine Saturn. So there's a lot of like, maybe you're making more money. Maybe you're utilizing your money more. Maybe you're putting more money into your business. That's Mars trining Saturn, right? There's some constructive use to it. But then when we get to October, there's 2 things going on in October that I really want to, October is the month where a lot of shit goes down. We start the month off with Saturn squaring Uranus. Saturn's retrograde in your 10th house. Can you handle the heat of the kitchen? Uranus is retrograde in your 1st house. You took a leap of faith. You took a leap of faith. Are you still trusting that? Uranus is about breakthroughs, and I think a lot about Shawshank when I think of Uranus in the 1st house. The second you decide to escape that prison, you're committed. Are you going to go through the whole tunnel all the way to the river, get out of the river, and then you got once you're gone, you're gone. You can't just stop. You got to keep going. And Saturn, Uranus squaring in your 1st house and your 10th house is I think you might be dealing with a lot of the harsher parts of and this isn't to say to not take those leaps of faith. This isn't to say to do those wacky, crazy things that you're going to do them. But during this time, you're also going to be dealing with the responsibilities that you're going to have to be taking on with that. Saturn square Uranus, expect things to be unstable, expect things to be, destabilized, expect things to be uncertain with yourself and your work, yourself and your career and just the bigger life scope of things. This is about reining in that power. This is about reining in that authority and really just fucking getting a grip on shit, really. You got to be able to roll with the punches here and you got to be able to go with the change. Because these are fixed signs, and because we know how you guys are as a Taurus, you don't bend. You resist and resist until things snap. You don't want this to be a snapping moment. Venus is going to be going through your 6th house, though. I like this for work stuff, for health stuff. So maybe you're just dealing with a lot of chaos in the workspace. Even though, maybe work is good. I don't know. Again, you're going to have to let me know, you know what this, again, if you like this video, be sure to like this, but also let me know later on in the year what ends up happening during this time so you can let me know if I'm right or wrong. Anyway, also in October, what I wanted to get to is this. When we get to about October, 10th here, Mars is going to square Neptune. Mars is in your second house of your finances and your money. Mars rules your seventh house of individuals, and it's squaring Neptune. Your friend's not sure where they placed it. You're not sure where your friend went. Maybe your friend borrowed some money, then they went MIA. There's something mysterious going on that you can't account for, that you don't know what's going on. You're going to feel very confused with where to spend your money, with where to put your money. You're going to feel very confused of where your money's going. Mars squaring Neptune, just like, don't do things in avoidance. Don't do things because you're lost, because you're going to spend more money than you're anticipating. I don't like the Mars square Neptune, because that's just going to be like, okay, what am I doing wrong? And you're not going to be sure what you're doing wrong. Which that leads us to the very end of October, which we have a very dramatic ending to October. We'll have this like Venus Cazimi, which is nice in your sixth house, but whatever. Let's get to here. Venus Cazimi, along with an eclipse. Venus Cazimi, eclipse in your seventh house in the south node. For some of you, this is getting rid of a relationship. For a lot of you, it's getting rid of a relationship. Jupiter's been in your 12th house. You've been really thinking about it. You've been really thinking about what you don't like. Mars is your 7th house ruler, is about to station retrograde. There's a lot of things that have been happening over the past couple weeks that you're going to go back over. But this is an eclipse on the south node, Venus Cazimi. This is your ascendant ruler. For a lot of you, this is getting out of a relationship. For a lot of you, this is getting in a relationship. This is all about relationships, guys. Really, end of story, full stop. This could be with a coworker. This could be a secret relationship that people don't know about. Really juicy. And that leads us to Halloween, when Mars stations retrograde. Your 7th house ruler stations retrograde and starts to move backwards. Everything that your 7th house ruler of relationships was doing, you're going to come back to. So there was something about relationships. There was something about money. There was something about hidden things that you didn't see what was going on that you're going to come back over starting at the end of October. That leads us to November. On November, Jupiter retrogresses back into Pisces. Jupiter's out of your 12th house. You're out of your subconscious head. Jupiter's now back in your 11th house. This is bringing a bigger focus on your friendships, on your community, on your networks, on the people you associate with. Jupiter is saying, hey, do you have faith in these people? Do you trust these people? Is this who you should be associating with? As Jupiter just goes back into your 11th house, you're probably just going to be leaning more on your friends at this time. Then we have Mars retrograding in your 2nd house. Things that you were expecting to do with your money, things that you were spending your money on. There's some type of money change. Maybe you might be burning through more cash. Do not count your chickens before they hatch at this time. You will certainly get fucked over. Mars retrograde in your 2nd house. Mars squaring Neptune. Yeah, there's just money stuff coming up that it's not the end of the world. You're not going to like lose everything. But Mars squaring Neptune I don't think you're even going to be knowing what's really going on or what the issue is, but there's going to be some type of issue. And of course, I'm recording this in September of 2021. So this is a whole year out from now. Long time. We get to November, and then I want to bring your attention to November 8th. Actually, my bad, November 7th. Look at this. There's this Mercury Cazimi eclipse going on. Again, this is the relationship stuff that's going on. This is the total lunar eclipse. Well, like a Mercury Cazimi is when things become clear. And this is when a message becomes clear. And this is happening in your 7th house of relationships, right? So a message is getting across. This could be about money, since Mercury rules your 2nd house of money. This could be about kids and sex, because it rules your 5th house of love and romance and recreation. But this is a total lunar eclipse in your 1st house. I think you might get thrown for a little loop here. I think, I think a lot of you are going to be resisting getting in a relationship, and then some of you do. And I think a lot of you are going to be resisting leaving your relationship, but then end up doing it. A lot of dramatic changes with yourself in relationships at this time. That's really the big focus. And somehow it involves money. I don't know how though. That's November. You're dealing with all of this stuff, which kind of leads us into a little bit of December. But at the end of November, we're going to have Mercury and Venus conjoining each other for quite some time. And they're going to be conjoining each other in your 8th house. Now, this is important because, you know, Mercury rules your 2nd house of money, and it's going to be in your 8th house of shared resources, other people's money. Venus rules your 1st house of yourself and your identity, and it's in your 8th house of other people's money and shared resources. And so there's going to be this bigger focus on not your money, but other people's money. Mars is squaring Neptune. So here's the thing. People might be saying they have money for you. I wouldn't necessarily trust them. Like Mars squaring Neptune, maybe people are like, oh, I'll give you money to help you out with something. And you might be really reliant on that help, but I don't know if that will all be there all of the way. This seems like, you know, a lot of people might be fooling you. So be a little skeptical. And that's the majority of November, which brings us into December, really. We'll have the Mercury-Venus opposition to Mars around the end of November, which is really going to be a big look at your money and other people's money, your money and your partner's money. What, you know, maybe you spent money on something dumb and your partner needs to like pay for the bills for a minute. Maybe you stopped working or something. Like, I don't know. Either way, there's something going on with your money where there's a big look at your money and shared resources. Maybe you're paying off debt at this time. Maybe you won money in the lottery and you're taking care of some business that you got to take care of. Jupiter is also now direct in your 11th house. So Jupiter rules your 8th house of your shared resources. Jupiter rules your 8th house of debt and investments. And now that Jupiter is stationing direct, things are moving forward again. Now you're just having to, again, deal with the shit that you are already dealing with, but things start to move forward, at least there, which brings us to December. December, really, one of the big highlights is this full moon on top of Mars, because this is going to be like, okay, what are your expenses? What do you need to do? Where do things need to go? Venus is squaring Jupiter. You know, maybe if you make a lot of money, that money ain't yours and you got debts to pay off. Maybe you're, you know, I don't know how that's exactly going to look, but this is definitely as you handle this money situation that's going on. And again, I don't want to just like scare people like you're going to lose all your money. It could be, you know, your car breaks for a minute, or maybe, you know, let's say your laptop breaks and it fucks you up with work for a little while. And so maybe you can't afford a new laptop. So maybe your work pays for it or something. Like it's not always the worst thing ever, but it is definitely throwing a wrench in your plans. And I think this is when you start to solve that problem much more. And things just become, a path forward becomes much more clear around December. And then pretty much Jupiter enters Aries at the very end of December again. And again, what was going on summer for you guys? Jupiter was in your 12th house, maybe doing things solo, examining your subconscious, examining your beliefs more, questioning your ability of doing things, and probably telling yourself that you actually can do things much more and you are capable of doing more, and probably giving yourself a little ego stroke. Jupiter is going to go back into Aries, and it's time to charge that up again. You might be more distrustful of people and you may want to be more self-reliant, but you might have to rely on someone else though. So it's, again, life's complicated. This is complicated. And, you know, Mercury and Venus are going to be conjoining each other the whole time. And then I think at the very end of 2022, Mercury stations retrograde on Pluto, where we come right back full circle to where we're at now. And Mercury stations retrograde on Pluto in your 9th house, where, again, spirituality change. Maybe you spend money on some courses or on a class or traveling or something like that. And that's how we literally end 2022. So that's this year for you guys. Again, let me know in the comments, what month are you looking the most forward to? What month are you not looking forward to? What do you guys think is going to happen? How are you going to handle going about this year? I really want to know in the comments below. If you like this video, please be sure to like it. If you don't know me and you've never seen my videos before, consider subscribing if you like content like this as well. So if you want to know what's going on every single month for your zodiac sign, consider becoming a patron over on my Patreon and get access to a bunch of cool stuff. But anyway, with that being said, Thank you guys so much for being here, liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing. I love and appreciate every single one of you, and I'll be seeing you next year.